Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to The Explainer, where we take complex mysteries and break them down using nothing but the raw evidence. Today we're looking at a story that totally bridges the gap between divine mythology and hard science. We're investigating the myth and reality of lost cities, focusing specifically on the legendary ancient city of Dwarka.
Here's a quick roadmap of where we're headed. We'll start with the overarching legend of lost cities, do a quick comparison between Atlantis and Dwarka, and then we're jumping right into the hard marine archaeology. We'll talk about unearthing the submerged city itself, looking at ancient anchors and artifacts, and finally decoding exactly where myth, science, and reality intersect.
Section 1. The Legend of Lost Cities Echoes Beneath the Waves.
Moving right along to Section 2, Atlantis versus Dwarka, a tale of two citadels.
You know, for centuries, humanity has shared this universal, almost haunting fascination with powerful civilizations that just get suddenly swallowed by the ocean. When you compare the world's most famous vanished empires, two names pretty much dominate the conversation, right? Plato's Atlantis in the west and Lord Krishna's Dwarka in the east, a massive ancient coastal kingdom right out of the Mahabharata epic. Now, what's really interesting here is the profound difference in exactly why they fell. Atlantis? Well, that's a cautionary tale. Its destruction is explicitly tied to human corruption and hubris. But Dwarka is an entirely different story. Its submergence was actually graceful. It reflects this divine, cosmic rhythm of creation and destruction. The idea is that when Krishna departed, the sea simply reclaimed the city. And crucially, Dwarka isn't just some forgotten philosophical construct, it's a living, sacred pilgrimage site today.
Section 3. Unearthing the submerged city. The search begins.
Okay, so unlike Atlantis, which, let's be honest, remains an elusive ghost, Dwarka has triggered actual, tangible marine expeditions. To really capture the thrill of this modern exploration, just think about what explorer Josh Gates said during a 2019 expedition alongside Indian archaeologists. He pointed out that while the story of ancient Dwarka is an important religious tale, as they examine the submerged ruins, they're discovering that the legend may be based on something historic. That realization that an ancient myth might literally be grounded in stone changes the whole game.
And experts have the data to back up that search. We're talking about extensive geophysical surveys mapping out submerged ports around the Dwarka and Shankodar regions. Experts from the National Institute of Oceanography haven't just been out there guessing, they've been using high-resolution marine sonar to actively and meticulously map out these ancient submerged shorelines in the Arabian Sea.
But you're probably wondering, how does a sprawling, heavily fortified city just end up completely underwater? Well, marine archaeologist S.R. Rao's pioneering investigations gave us a really crucial piece of data: 10 meters. When this protohistoric port city was originally founded, the sea level was actually 10 meters lower than it is today. So over the centuries, as the waters naturally rose, they slowly and inevitably swallowed the boulder-founded walls of the city.
Which brings us to Section 4. Ancient anchors and artifacts. Evidence from the deep.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds our historical picture. Modern academic dating actually places the Kurukshetra War, which is the central conflict of the Mahabharata epic, around 3102 BCE, and that's based on astronomical alignments. Fast forward a bit and we hit 1600 BC, where ceramic evidence proves early habitation of Dwarka. And then by 1500 BC, we see the emergence of iron technology and very specific styles of pottery. It is absolutely fascinating how this chronology shows academic dating and physical archaeological layers aligning incredibly well with the timeline of these ancient epics.
The physical artifacts divers have pulled from the Gulf of Kutch are just staggering. Down in the Dwarka waters, they found massive stone walls and slipways, which is clear proof of advanced urban planning and coastal defense. They also discovered these huge triangular stone anchors, pointing to incredibly strong maritime and shipping connections. Then, over at Bet Dwarka, researchers pulled up lustrous redware pottery, which firmly dates habitation to around 1500 BC. But perhaps the craziest find? Iron stakes deep in the seabed. This is a huge deal because it directly corroborates the early use of iron weapons mentioned specifically in the Mahabharata.
Just imagine the sheer engineering reality of this place. Divers mapped out massive, three-holed, triangular, and prismatic stone anchors. Alongside the submerged structural site plans, this proves we aren't just looking at a small fishing village. This was a highly organized, massive protohistoric port city explicitly built to withstand high-energy ocean waves. And we really can't ignore the pottery. When you compare late Harappan redware to the lustrous redware recovered directly from Bet Dwarka, it tells an incredible story of survival. Because these pieces were rolled by rough ocean waves for centuries, they lost all their painted surfaces and got heavily pitted. But this sturdy redware survived, providing the vital stratigraphic link, the actual physical soil layer evidence that ties these submerged ruins directly back to the 15th century BC.
But seriously, this next find is truly astonishing. There's an ancient text known as the Harivamsa, and it explicitly states that every single citizen of Dwarka had to carry a mudra, basically a seal or mark of identification, almost like an ancient ID badge. Well, while excavating, archaeologists actually found a physical seal bearing the motif of a three-headed animal, a bull, a unicorn, and a goat. Think about that for a second. Finding physical muddy proof that directly corroborates a specific civic mandate written in an ancient text, that is literally the ultimate connection between epic poetry and hard archaeology.
Section 5. Myth, Science, and Reality Decoding the Epics.
So we've got the stones, we've got the massive anchors, and we've got the pottery. It all leads us to this one absolutely critical question. Is the Mahabharata just pure mythology, or is it actually an ancient science encoded in legend? As we look at the physical evidence, a fascinating modern academic hypothesis has popped up that tries to explain the supernatural phenomena described in these texts.
I want to impartially outline some of these hypotheses for you, which are heavily discussed by scholars like Nilesh Nilkant Oak. First up, Vimanas. The texts describe flying machines producing sonic booms, which some researchers suggest could indicate a really early understanding of aerodynamics. Second, Balarama's birth. It's described as an embryo transfer from Devaki to Rohini, which remarkably mirrors modern concepts of surrogacy. Third, demographic shifts. The population data in the texts actually reflects real-world demographic changes following a massive war. And finally, those astronomical alignments mentioned in the epic, they accurately map to the night sky in 3102 BCE. Now, we aren't saying these are absolute hard facts, but scholars are definitely suggesting that archaic civilizations may have encoded real scientific and historical understanding right inside these mythological stories.
So the crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote from a recent paper in the International Journal of Humanities, Social Science, and Management. They wrote, "The Mahabharata is a metaphorical reality, possibly inspired by real events, but told through the lens of mythology." It just perfectly illustrates how history and myth intertwine to preserve a culture's deepest memories.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a profound, almost provocative question posed by the researchers at Mythlock. What truly defines a civilization's legacy? Is it its physical achievements, its moral values, or the stories that survive long after it's gone? Well, as the submerged stones of Dwarka prove, the answer likely lies somewhere right in the middle. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and keep exploring these ancient mysteries.